part of the Curling Club, and he's here to talk to you about what the Curling Club is, if you do not know, and how it works, and the amount of fun that they have doing so. So, please join me in welcoming Don MacLean.
Hi. Let me show you a couple of short videos. The first one was produced by the Canadian Curling Federation, I think, and it's a 2-minute overview of the sport. Have most of you seen it on TV in the Winter Olympics or something? So you have a fair idea of what's going on? Okay. Let me also see.
Curling, the game with the ice, and the rocks, and the sweeping, and the yelling. Each game starts with a handshake and a coin flip to determine who goes first. Then, 2 teams of 4 people take turns throwing 44-pound stones down a sheet of ice. The target, a 12-foot house that looks like a bullseye, just under 150 feet away. Each team throws 8 rocks, and the team closest to the center will score the points. This process is repeated for 6 to 10 rounds, called ends, until one team is victorious. It's just that simple. Or is it? Each team has a captain called the skip. Like a general on the battlefield, the skip calls the shots that will best ensure victory. Stones are delivered with a predetermined rotation, so they actually curl as they travel down the ice. Of course, this is why the sport is called curling. Over the course of each end, players can throw cards to block the house, draws to try to score, or takeouts to remove the opponent's stones. The skips then spend the rest of the time yelling like a crazy person. What they're actually doing is emphatically advising their players to brush the ice in front of the stone. Brushing can drastically affect the speed and direction of the shot. After each team throws its 8 shots, the team closest to the center of the house will score. Or, if they have more than 1 rock closer than the opposition, they count as well. Once all the ends have been played, whoever has the most points wins. Aside from a few dozen other minor details, that's all there is to it. Find a curling facility near you and get started.
But those are the basics. 4 people on the side, and you slide a rock down, and you try and get it closest to the center of the house. We call that the button. And and by the way, I'll use a lot of what may sound like weird terms. We have our own lexicon when we're talking in curling, and some things that you might it's not like if you're throwing the rock, if you're throwing it too hard, we don't say that throwing it too hard. I mean, you threw it too heavy. So anyway, we'll go through that later. But if I do say something that doesn't sound like English, even though it's English, ask me. Okay. Meanwhile, let me get the next guy up. Yeah, this is more of an instructional video, and this is like a whole 6 minutes. So,
curling's a great tradition began in 16th century Scotland. Scottish farmers curled with kennel stones, which were naturally smoothed by the water's actions. Scottish immigrants brought the game with them to North America in the 18th century. By mid-19th century, curling clubs flourished in New York City, Detroit, Milwaukee, and Portage, Wisconsin. Today, there are over 170 clubs in the US, and one of the top 5 nations with the most active players. The modern game of curling is marked by a high degree of physical skill and mental toughness. Stones with the now familiar round shape were standardized at about 42 pounds. The consistency of the game was also advanced during the 20th century, with refrigerated indoor ice, which helps ensure a fast, consistent, and predictable playing surface. It is a game of precision, vigorous sweeping, and complex strategy. A game often referred to as chess on ice. Well, a curler plays to win, but never to humble their opponents. Like a true curler would rather lose than win unfairly. The spirit of curling, it demands good sportsmanship, kindly feeling, and honourable conduct. A curling team consists of 4 players. All 4 players on each team shoot or deliver 2 stones per end, alternating with the other team. One end is complete when all 16 stones have been delivered. The basic object is to complete each end with your stones closer to the centre of the house than those of the opponent. 1 point is scored for each stone closer to the middle of the house than any of the opponents. Stones must be in or touching the house to be considered for the scoring.
The team that scores last is given the first stone in the next end, also giving the opposing team the last stone, also known as the hammer. A league game is typically about 8 ends, lasting about 2 hours.
Play begins with the leads, followed by the seconds and the thirds, or via skips. The skip usually throws the last 2 stones and calls the team's strategy from the opposite end of the ice while the others are shooting. To deliver the stone, a player assumes a crouched position with 1 foot placed in a rubber foothold, the hack. One hand grips the stone handle, and the other hand holds the broom to provide balance, if needed. The player pushes off with the hack foot into an outstretched, sliding position, while the other foot placed under the centre of the chest and the stone out front along the line of delivery. A turn of the handle during the release makes the stone curve, or curl, as it travels down the ice. The object of shooting is to get the stone to come to rest at a spot where the skip has called for it, a draw, or to remove another stone, a takeout. Shooters must be accurate in 3 elements for a shot to be successful. They must deliver the stone towards the skip's target line, the broom, give the stone proper weight, and impart the correct turn on the handle so the stone curls in the intended direction. It is the skip's job to read the ice, to determine how much the stone will curl. The other 2 players are prepared to sweep the stone's path.
Sweeping is a super fun element in curling because you're taking the rock further by sweeping your foot. You can also make it run straighter. Good sweepers can take a rock as much as 15 feet further on a draw shot, and it really is the huge exercise part of curling, and that's sweeping.
Grip your broom with both hands, about 1/3 in from each end. Keep an open stance towards your skip by having your body between the brush and the rock facing the skip. Put enough force on the brush that you'll get some power leaning forward on the balls of your feet. Knees are slightly bent and your head should be above the broom. Apply a good amount of force and pressure to create friction on the ice.
The most important thing when you begin curling is to really get a good basic delivery going, because it's so much more fun playing this game when you're throwing a really good curling rock and executing shots. That brings a lot more fun into it. So certainly good foot position in behind the stone is important, a good lineup in the hack initially, and then a good long slide that really tracks towards the target for in-turn and out-turn both is really essential in having a lot more fun with the game of curling.
First thing you want to do is make sure that you step into the hack properly so that your body and your foot is aligned at the skip's broom at the other end. You want to crouch down, making sure that your broom is firmly under your arm and on your back so it gives you another point of balance. Have your slider foot a little bit ahead of your gripper foot. Bring the rock over in front of you so that it's on line with your body. Your shoulders are square to the skip's broom. When you grip the rock, you want to hold it so that your wrist is high and that your palm is not touching the handle, but you still have a firm grip using your fingertips. Starting at either 10 o'clock for an in-turn or 2 o'clock position for the out-turn, releasing at the 12 o'clock position for either in-turn or out-turn. So the next step is the forward press. You begin by sliding the rock forward just a little bit, just to get the rock moving. Then you want to start the draw back. Bring the rock back to your hack foot. Imagine that there's a line between your foot and the skip's broom at the other end. So bring your weight back just a little bit behind your hack foot. This creates a momentum so that when you go forward, you're adding a little bit more force and push off out of the hack.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. See you on the ice.
Okay, I got one more thing I want to show you because I am here to talk about the local curling club also. And we had a Bourne spiel this past weekend. And again, crazy terms, Bonspiel is what we call a tournament. And the one we had this weekend was called the Chris Mix. Obviously, it's a Christmas thing. And it's also mixed men and women both play in the same team. And that's true of most of our curling leagues, by the way. There is really very little advantage for men over women, unlike a lot of other sports. And you probably saw in here, and certainly you'll see in some of my pictures, that we have everybody from 6-year-old kids playing alongside 90-year-old men. You don't have to be big and strong to play the sport. You have to be balanced and a little bit crazy, I think, but nonetheless. These are some pictures that I took just to show you that local people do this and how much fun we're having. These are real people, and as strange as that may seem. Okay. Good friends of mine. I've played with these guys ever since they joined the club, or ever since I joined the club. Again, this is the Chris Mix. You've probably seen the guys on TV at the Olympics with the funny pants. There you go. Outfits, people were dressing up. We had a contest. That's an ugly sweater. And again, the social aspect of curling is a big deal. Notice the Bloody Mary in her hand. Another great outfit. There's kind of an action shot out on the ice, and you can see all the stones that are there, and you can see the house. And in fact, the guy in the back, way in the back, see bent. You can see the guy in the back bent over. Yeah, that guy's name is Todd Benedict. He's actually currently the president of the club. Trying to figure out what we're going to do next. Here's a curling stone. This one was actually owned by my great-grandfather, who lived in Canada. So this stone is well over 100 years old. It's been in the family for forever. As you can see, it's made by a solid piece of granite. Almost all curling stones come from a single island off the coast of Scotland. Pardon? Sounds good to me. I don't remember the name. Okay, and it's a nice smooth stone. What you probably won't be able to tell from your seats is if you look at the bottom, there's a little concave section that's carved out. Okay, the curling stone actually rides on this little rim here. It doesn't ride flat on the bottom of the stone. It'd be too much friction. Okay. And again, the ice is a little different. Again, to make these stones work, the ice is not smooth. We don't have a Zamboni to smooth the ice. It wouldn't work. The stones wouldn't slide at all. So we pebble them. Okay, and to pebble the ice, we have a guy or woman, doesn't make any difference, has a backpack full of special water. It's purified, clean, ionized water, and it's connected to what looks like a shower head. And you walk down the ice, spraying this water all over the ice, up and down, so it now has little droplets of water. The water is warmed, but when it hits the ice, it freezes immediately. Okay, so now the ice is all bumpy. Problem is a little bit too bumpy. So we have another person that come along with a big, huge, long thing, looks like a big push broom, except the bottom of it is a steel blade, and that's called a nipper. And so that cuts off the tops of the bumps of the pebbles so that the proper height. And that allows the stone to slide down the ice and to grip the ice and curl. Remember, when you release the stone, you put a rotation on it. So it will curl one way or the other, and this way it can kind of grab into the pebbles a little bit. And again, as the guy said in the thing, that's why we call it curling. And by the way, what will happen, one of the reasons why you do that is if you throw it without putting a rotation on it, it's like throwing a knuckleball in baseball. You don't know what it's going to do. It could go to the left, to the right, who knows? And that doesn't do you very good when you're trying to hit a target. You have to be able to predict that's what you're going to do. Just like I'll say bowling, you put a rotation on the ball and you line it up so you know how much the curve that's going to go there. If you don't do that, who knows what's going to happen. Okay. So anyway, here's a stone. You can come up. I wouldn't suggest lifting it necessarily because it's really old and I can't trust the handle, but it's heavy. Oops. Let me try here. Here's what a broom looks like. The guy in the video said it's one of the most fun parts of curling. It's not. It's hard work. Sweeping the ice is tough. You're supposed to put as much weight as you possibly can on the broom. Basically, it's supporting the entire weight of your body. So you kind of don't want to screw up and fall. The ice is hard, and if you fall, it hurts. It hurts a lot. I've seen people, go to the hospital. We have a lot of curlers that actually wear helmets because you don't want to clunk your head. If you're careful, that won't happen, but it does. It's certainly happened to me, and it's happened to a lot of folks. We try to be careful as we can, but ice happens, as I like to say. In any event, the broom is relatively light, and it has most of them all have a swivel head on it. So you can see I can twist it any way I want to. When I sweep, generally I curl it like this, so I can sweep in front of the stone this way. Okay, this way I can get as close to the stone as I want, and still have the full head of the broom there. Okay. One of the things you're not allowed to do when you're curling is touch the stone. Just touching it a tiny bit, we call it burning the stone, and the stone is taken out of play. It's now null and void. Now, just touching a 42-pound rock as it's sliding on the ice doesn't change things much, but it could. So those are the rules. You don't touch the stone. What's also unique about curling, in some respects, is that you call your own mistakes. So if you're the guy sweeping and you touch the rock, you're the one who raises their hand and said, "Oh, I did it. I did something wrong." What the guy said in the video is that you would rather lose than win unfairly is true. You don't cheat at curling, and you don't trash talk in curling either. In some respects, it's like golf. It's like, well, I don't know. But the cheating part in golf is a little bit debatable. But nonetheless, in golf, it's supposed to be a gentleman's game, and you're supposed to call your own mistakes, right? So if you grounded your club in a sand trap, you say, "Oh, I did that." Okay. And in curling, you always do that. And when somebody makes a good shot, whether it's your team or not, you congratulate them on a good shot. Again, which is a little bit different, certainly different than basketball, with nothing but trash talk, right? Curling is much different from that. And what they also showed in the video, when they shake hands before the game, that's true. Before the game, you shake hands with everybody on your team and everybody on the opponent's team, and you say, "Good curling." And you say that at the end of the game also, "Good curling, enjoyed it." And then this is the best part. In curling, you can't lose, right? Either you win the game, or if you're the losing team, the winners buy drinks. So you win, right? I mean, it can't be any better than that. And you can see the social aspect from looking at the costumes and from the people and the pictures. It's a big deal. After every single game, both teams sit down at the same table and they have a drink. Now, you don't have to have, it doesn't have to be a shot in a beer. You can have a cup of coffee or a Fresca if you prefer, but some people will have a single malt scotch. I mean, you never know. But everybody sits down and they talk about the game, and usually we'll talk about the good shots. Sometimes you talk about the bad ones, but nonetheless, it's fun. And it's nice if you're joining the club. You're never by yourself. You never have to worry about, well, after the game, I don't know anybody. Who am I going to talk to? You're going to talk to your teammates and the other players, and you'll end up knowing everybody in the league eventually. So it's really nice. It really is very nice. So anyway, so generally I sweep like that. You can sweep like this if you prefer, and when you're delivering the stone, to use it as you saw in the thing, to support yourself, you would hold it. You'd hold it like that, and the broom actually has a flat piece on the edge where it would ride on the ice. And another thing, while I'm thinking about it, and I don't want to get too technical, but just like in golf, there's some weird things have been going on in the last X number of years, you know, with the square grooves in the irons. You remember that? And the golf balls that go really far, and the titanium club, the heads and the shafts and everything like that. So now anybody who's over 12 years old can hit a ball 350 yards. Well, in curling, it's pretty basic stuff. Although at least we're not using corn brooms anymore. We did that for a long time, and now we have real curling shoes. But somebody came out about a year ago with a special kind of nylon fabric for the bottom of the brooms, so you could actually control the curl of the stone more. And there was an uproar internationally about that because that wasn't considered to be good curling. And in reality, what happened was that those brooms are now outlawed for national and international competition. At club level, you can still use them. But I thought that was kind of neat. I mean, who would think that the bottom of a broom would cause an uproar? I mean, who knows? And the last thing that you need to see are these special curling shoes. Again, the guy mentioned it on the in the video, and actually the woman did too when she was talking about the delivery part. And she talked about the gripper shoe. That's what this one is. If you look at the bottom of the shoe, it's soft pebbled rubber. Okay, looks like the bottom of an overshoe on it. You really kind of have to have a real curling shoe for it to stay put on the ice so you don't slip. Even with these, you can slide around a little bit, but they're the best thing I've ever done. I actually bought a pair of I'll call them chef's shoes. They're special shoes if you're working in the kitchen. Then they have a rubber sole on them, so you don't slip on the tile floor when it gets wet, and it doesn't work on the ice. So we have, again, special grippers on the shoe. And when you're sweeping, you don't want to slip at all. So you have the gripper on the bottom of the other shoe. However, you also have to be able to deliver the stone. So the gripper is removable. All is revealed. Okay, so this is the slider shoe, and this is really indeed Teflon or silicone Teflon. Okay, and this is slippery. Right? If you can imagine sliding on this on ice, you go a long ways. Okay, and so that's how you deliver the stone. You push it forward, and you slide on this foot, and then when you get back off the ice, you put this one back on so you don't kill yourself. Some of the pros will never put a gripper on because they're so comfortable with the ice and they've been doing this for so long. That's not an issue for them. But I don't think we have anybody in our club that does that. Certainly not me. I've seen too many people get hurt for me to do that. Okay. Any questions? Yes.
Does that indicate? Oh, wait a minute. Does that indicate you're left-handed?
No, actually, that indicates I'm right-handed.
Really?
Yeah.
You slide on the opposite foot.
You slide on the opposite foot. If you remember, you put your foot in the hack. Now, the hack is that rubber thing that looks like a starter's block. Okay. If you're right-handed, you have to use the hack on the left. Okay. And that makes sense because your right hand is going to have the stone, and you want that to be in the middle. And so you put your foot in the hack. Okay. You kind of put it up in the thing so you ball your foot, can push against it, and then you push forward and you slide on this foot. Okay. So righties have the slider on the left, and lefties obviously have it on the other one. Yes, sir?
Does it matter when you're pushing the stone which is a dominant eye?
That's a good question because I have that problem. I'm right-handed, my dominant eye is my left eye. I don't know if that's my problem or not, but in some respects it does. I actually sent an email to a national instructor who writes for the Curling News to ask him about that because he was very, very detailed about how you line yourself up to, we'll use the term hitting the broom. The skip, who's the captain, will for every single shot take the broom, put it down on the ice, and that's your target. Okay, so that's what you're aiming for. Now the skip will also tell you where he wants it to go. So they usually will kind of tap the spot where it's supposed to go. Then they'll put it down there and they'll say, go for it. Okay. They will usually stick their hand out. And that tells you which way they want you to curl the stone. Okay, so if I did this, that means I'm going to curl it this way. This is what I'm aiming for, and that's the target. So anyway, the big deal is hitting the broom. And there are lots of parts you have to line up. You know, your body, your entire body. The shoulders have to be square, the stomach, the knees, the feet, and the curling stone. Anyway, this guy had his big long article about that, and especially with your eyes. And I said, I'm dominant in my left eye. And he said, well, he knew a guy who kind of did some weird things to adjust for that. But in the bottom line, I don't think it makes too much difference. But in my case, I've actually considered switching to be left-handed, so that my dominant eye is indeed lined up with the stone. It's pretty important to do that.
Now, when you sweep, what do you do to make it reduce the speed or increase the speed or have a more curvy curve?
Well, actually, of those three things you mentioned, you can only do one of them. Okay. When you're sweeping, there are only two things you can do. That's to make it go farther, you know, in a sense faster, but mostly it's farther, or to curl less. You can't make it curl more, and you can't make it slow down. You would wish that lots of times, but if the stone is too heavy, that is to say, it was pushed too hard, or it was too wide, and we use the terms narrow and wide when you're throwing it towards the broom. If it's too far to the outside, we say that's wide. If it's too wide, you can't make it curl more. You can only make it curl less if it's a little narrow, and in which case then you can straighten it out some. Yes, sir.
The floor where you slide that on, what is it made out of?
What's ice?
Nice.
No, indoors,
Indoors, yeah.
all ice?
It's all ice. Yeah, we have big, huge compressors that run coolant underneath the ice, and they're constantly monitored for the temperature and the humidity and all that kind of neat stuff. It's just like you would at a skating rink.
So that there makes it smoother.
Well, actually, it's not particularly clear exactly what it does. That's how I think about it. And most curlers will talk about melting the ice. Because you would think, well, if there's a little water there, it's really going to be slicker, so it'll go faster. I don't think you're really melting the ice. I think maybe smoothing it is what you're really doing. But yeah, whatever works mentally for you. All I know is if you're down there sweeping, it does make a difference. And it's really hard work. In fact, I have a scar on my elbow because I curled so hard I blew out the tendon. So I had to get that fixed. Yes, sir.
What is the temperature in the curling room as opposed to the drinking room?
The curling ice is usually around 45, I would say. So it's cold, but it's not super cold. I actually know a guy who always plays in a t-shirt. He never even wears a jacket. I know another guy who always plays in shorts. Those are the exceptions.
He's from Canada, right?
Actually, he's from Connecticut, the guy who plays in shorts. He just does it as a goof. And a good friend of mine, he's really a hoot. And I've been on his team a number of times. And one time we were playing, and again, he said, okay, the last game of the season, we're all wearing shorts. So I was out there wearing shorts, and it really wasn't so bad. First of all, you warm up, and as long as you're wearing, a warm jacket and everything, the fact that your legs are exposed isn't that big a deal. But it's not super cold out there. It's not super cold out there. And by the way, the drinking room we usually call the warm room. Yeah. I don't know.
How long are they at the warm right now?
Oh, well, I think it's just temperature-wise, but it's on the other side of the glass. We have a whole row of chairs along the glass to watch the players. There are 3 sheets of ice, we call them, and there are chairs all the way along there so you can see what's going on. And we have TV cameras up on the top of the wall that focus down on top of the house. Remember, the house is the target? So you can see the house, so that even though you're at the other end, you can look up on the monitor and see who has the closest stone or the closest rock. We usually call that the shot rock, but it's the closest curling stone to the button. And there's also, and this is true of a lot of sports, the people in the warm room never make a mistake. It's only the other guys that make a mistake. So, because they're all the second guessers. They're all the second guessers. They say, oh, we should have done that. Oh, God, what's wrong with this guy? They're the ones that make the mistakes when they're out there. It's Monday morning quarterback, except we do it on every shot. and there are a lot of them. There's 16 every end. An end is like an inning, and there are 8 ends. So there's lots of opportunity. And if any of you ever come down to the club and you want to learn about it, I can absolutely guarantee you, if you're sitting next to a member, you can tell the members because they'll have a thing on. All you have to do is pretend you don't know anything about curling and you would like to learn, and they're off. They won't stop talking. They'll explain everything to you. To us, the strategy is really important. To the people watching it on TV, it's like shuffleboard. I mean, you just throw the rock down there and the closest one wins. No, not for us. All these things about guarding the house and the draws and the promotions and the takeouts and everything like that is very, very complex. You don't remember the picture, but the guy I told you was in the back there. He was sitting down looking at all the ice. He was trying to figure out what he was going to do next. The strategy is very, very important as to whether or not you try to guard the guy from knocking your stone out or whether or not you try and put another one into the house. And it all depends on the score, the talent of your player and their players, and whether or not they can do a particular shot, what the ice is doing. The ice changes during the course of the game. Makes it tough to figure out what's going on. But remember, they're sliding rocks down this thing, for 2 hours. The game is usually 2 hours long. Changes the ice. People run up and down it. So those conditions change.
Even the brushing would change.
That's right, and this changes it also. So the skips have to adjust that in their calls. The skip is, I don't want to say the god, but yeah, that's very, very important role because they tell you, here's the target, here's how I want you to curl it, that's where I want you to go, and you have to believe them. You have to do exactly that, and they have to have that all figured out. Yes?
What's the membership now?
Again, I don't know exactly. I think 250, 300, something like that. I also have with me, if anybody's interested, I have some brochures from the club.
Doing the club out of Falmouth?
Yes, yeah, it's the only one in the area. And these are actual pictures of real members. And I've played with this kid. He's now in college. And these are all real people that I know. It's a great club. You can, if anybody wants one of these, here's a picture of some of the women in the kitchen. We have a commercial kitchen. We have, as I said, a lot of bonspiels for which we provide food. So we're cooking dinner in there or lunch all the time. It's great. It's great fun. Again, I told you, age, sex doesn't matter. Even if you're handicapped. There's a picture here of guys in wheelchairs. We have a very, very active wheelchair curling program. Probably the best in the country, if not the world. 2 of our members are currently on the national team, and 2 of them went to the Olympics in Sochi. One of them has since moved down to Florida, but he's been replaced by another guy who's now the skip on the national wheelchair team. So it's very, very important to us, and they not only play in their own tournaments, they will actually play with us too. They able-bodied folks. They can do everything. They can't sweep, but they can figure out the game. They can know the strategy, and they can deliver the stone. They don't slide. Say, here's a guy sliding the stone. You don't throw it. You slide. But they have a long stick. That's literally what it is. and it's got a special little adapter on the end of it, and that adapter fits on the handle, and they just lock the wheels, and then push the stone and put the twist on it, and they're good. Yeah, Megan and Steve are our current best members, and they're tough. You don't want to be playing against them. They're hard to beat. They're hard to beat.
Years and years ago, weren't there blades at the bottom of those shoes?
Blades?
Yeah.
No. Years ago, before they kind of developed the modern curling shoe, they used to wear just regular men's leather sole shoes. Never any blades out that I know of. And again, you saw in the video, you saw some of the old stones. They just kind of used river rocks and just pieces of granite. They were all kind of different sizes and shapes. And again, this has been standardized for obviously a long time, because I know this is over 100 years old. The only difference between this one is that all the current ones have a collar on the top, and this one doesn't. But those guys were tough back then. They could tell their stones from somebody else.
Are the rocks all one weight, or they're varied?
No, they're all the same.
All the same weight?
They're all the same.
Weight on them?
42 pounds. 42 pounds. Although I've never seen them. There might be some lighter stones for junior players, but the junior players that we have, and we go down until I'm literally 6 years old, or 5 years old. I don't know how old the youngest kids are. They use the same stones we use. It doesn't take a lot of strength to do this. Remember, you're pushing off, and it's just sliding on ice. So you don't have to. In fact, you don't throw it. You don't push it with your hand. Your body pushes the stone out in front of you, and then you just release it. And for most curlers, their problem is being too heavy. In other words, they throw it too hard all the time. It's usually that's the mistake if you're throwing one wrong. So usually you have to lighten it up a little bit, because if it's a little bit too light, then the sweepers can fix it. All right, they can make it go farther. If it's a little bit too heavy, nothing you can do. I mean, you can say, and I do this all the time, sit, Ubu, sit. Yeah, but the stone never listens. It just keeps going, and it can drive you crazy, because when it gets to the end, it just keeps going. Say, how can it keep going? Why doesn't it stop? And it just keeps going. And what's also, this is really kind of heartbreaking when you're the guy who threw the stone, and you're trying to put one, and it looks like it's going to go right dead center, right? It's going to stop right in the middle, and you're all ready to hoot and holler, but it's going just a little bit too hard. What happens is that after the curling stone goes past that button, there's a line that goes through it. That's called the T line. Then the other team is allowed to sweep. Okay? Now what does that mean? As soon as your stone goes past the center, that other guy is sweeping it like crazy to keep it going, so it will go all the way out of the house. And it drives you crazy. Oh, he's like, oh no, don't do that! And he does, or she does, and your stone's useless. It's funny how that happens. Okay, anybody else have any questions, anything else? I can't think of anything else I need to tell you. It's 4 people, 8 ends. It's a lot of fun. Safety is important. Again, that's why you have the grippers. But it's not like skydiving and so or playing football. Pretty good. Okay. Well, I think I'm done. Thank you very much for showing up, gentlemen. Again, if anybody wants a brochure, help yourself. I got a handful.